I just want to say to Donald Trump, thanks. Him showing up to North Carolina, seeing those people's faces, it's like Superman just arrived. This man is exactly what a president should be. Just a leader and a lover of the American people. That's what it should be. And all the ICE agents putting their life on the line to get these criminals out of the country, to keep us safe, that's the way it should be. But also, thank you to them. I mean, this is like insane. It's like we jump timelines and things are actually back on track or headed back on track. And happy Friday.
So I'm very happy to officially report today that America actually has a real president. Round of applause for this country, because in yesterday's video, we talked about how within the first few hours of the brand new Trump administration, help started to finally trickle on the way for the residents, the victims of Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. Of course, we were told for several months by the outgoing Biden administration that, oh, we're doing everything we can. It's a total conspiracy theory to even suggest that the government may purposely be slow rolling the aid to North Carolina because of political reasons. And FEMA's very good. They're doing a great job. They're just out of money, this and that, all this nonsense. And then immediately within the first few hours, first few days of Trump, we find out actually FEMA does have the resources to genuinely help people. Actually, there was plenty more the federal government could have done. No, what was going on was that the people of this country, especially in North Carolina, but in a lot of places, were being both forgotten about and actively betrayed by their own government. But as of January 20th, 2025, the mass betrayal of this country is over. And again, we finally have a real president. And what's another reason I say that? Well, in Trump's first official visit anywhere as the president, you know, usually that first travel is reserved for something glamorous, some type of fancy foreign visit. Trump didn't bother with any of that. He said the first place I'm traveling anywhere as president of this country is to North Carolina, is to those forgotten men and women who are in a really bad position. They've been actively betrayed by their government. And as we showed you in yesterday's video, as well as the opening clip there, we can safely report that a lot of the residents of this area are extremely grateful that finally they're being acknowledged by their own government that they pay tax dollars to. I mean, it's absolutely insane. It's infuriating on one hand, but on the other hand, again, it is what it is. At this point, at least we finally have a government that is trying to serve its own people. But with that said, okay, so Trump's visit to North Carolina today, I think it's worth noting that it was not just about a photo op. It was not just about kind of trying to gain PR or something. No, the new administration is actively taking steps that the last administration didn't in order to speed up the process of recovery to North Carolina. And I want everyone to remember that when, you know, again, we are told that, oh, FEMA was doing everything it could. Joe Biden was doing such a great job. No, that was certainly not true. We'll tell you that in a second. First, folks, do us a big favor. If you enjoy the content, if you enjoy the coverage we're bringing you to these, you know, less talked about stories, I guess you could say, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe if you are new. You subscribing is the #1 way to ensure we can keep bringing you these videos. It's totally free, and let's begin the road to 1 million subscribers. And with that said, again, this is not just about PR. This is not just about photo ops, because today Trump issued an executive order to eliminate all regulations on road construction for North Carolina's rebuilding efforts. Okay, today I'll be signing an executive order slashing all red tape to ensure the rapid reconstruction of roads. Of course, a big reason, allegedly, you know, unless we want to assume malice, which I think is also valid. But allegedly, the reason why North Carolina's rebuilding was so slow was because we need these regulations. We need all this government red tape. And of course, you know, Joe Biden's a Democrat, so they support government regulation more. Except the reason why I want to point out, no, it's just a mass betrayal of the people, is because when it came to California, what did Gavin Newsom get for the wildfires? A blank check, spare no expense. We're going to lift all the red tape. But when it came to North Carolina, no red tape gets lifted. It's insane. But here's Trump announcing how and explaining how the removal of this red tape is going to actually actively speed up the recovery process. Take a listen.
I'm pleased to announce that under our leadership, the federal government will be surging housing solutions to the state that go beyond mere temporary hotel stays that ended up being very short term. The government wouldn't do it any longer, which is ridiculous. We'll marshal all available resources and bring back potable water and make your water and infrastructure dramatically, more reliable very quickly. Today, I'll also be signing an executive order slashing all red tape and bureaucratic barriers and permits to ensure the rapid reconstruction of the roads here in western North Carolina. We're going to go through a permitting process that's called no permitting, just get it done. That's the way they built them many years ago. I guarantee you that, right?
Yeah, again, why didn't Joe Biden do that? Serious question. Of course, you're going to say, no, maybe those regulations are necessary. Maybe all this bureaucratic red tape is necessary, even though if you kind of live in the real world, you often see it's just a barrier to progress. But again, I ask, okay, so if it wasn't political discrimination, if it wasn't on purpose, if it wasn't intentionally malicious, which it was, why did he remove all the bureaucratic red tape for California, but not North Carolina? There's an obvious reason for that. And also, this is important to note, let's not forget this, because in yesterday's video, we talked about how FEMA was putting up people in temporary hotels and they were not extending the stay. They're saying, we don't have the money to house people. And so you had these residents in North Carolina, some of them literally camping out in tents in the freezing winter with their babies, with their children, and a government that says, sorry, we don't have the money. And then again, in the first, we talked about these yesterday, but within the first hours of the Trump administration, suddenly these residents are getting fully furnished, a long-term apartments that they don't have to worry about, whether or not they're going to be able to stay there the next day. Absolutely insane. But again, that's something Trump's bringing up as well, right? Another area in which the last administration actively betrayed the citizens of this country. Of course, you probably also heard in the reporting of this just disaster of government response in North Carolina that a big issue going on was with FEMA, right? FEMA was getting in the way. Remember, they were like blocking the roads from Elon Musk being able to deliver Starlink to those communities. And obviously, when it came to the rebuilding efforts, the fact that they were so in the way with their bureaucracy, as well as like them just having to take control of everything and not doing a good job of it, was of course also slow rolling the aid. Well, today, check this out. Trump has signed another executive order that, number one, is going to get FEMA out of the way, but also will be looking very carefully at potentially eliminating FEMA as a whole and giving the relief money directly to state governments in situations like this, so that way they can do the rebuilding and relief process themselves.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area, and they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away, and we pay directly. We pay a percentage to the state, but the state should fix this. If the state did this from the beginning, it would have been a lot better situation. I think you guys agree with that, right?
No, I mean, honestly, I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think it's the right move. Okay, of course, when you say you're going to be eliminating FEMA, people get scared. They'll say, what? How can you do that? No, we need FEMA. But when you really break it down, again, the idea there is brilliant, okay? The state, a local state and a local government should be the ones overseeing the relief efforts. Why? Because they know their area. They're more in touch with their citizens. It's not just federal bureaucrats from like Washington, D.C. or New York coming to rural America and trying to figure out how to fix something. No. And of course, the federal government should help financially, maybe even keep FEMA people around, but they should actually be subservient to the local government. Because again, the local government is more in touch with its citizens, and those local bureaucrats probably know more about the area than the federal bureaucrats. Okay, so this is a great idea, and even if you don't totally eliminate FEMA, you got to get them out of the way. But I again ask the question, so why didn't Joe Biden do any of this? If the solution was so simple and obvious, which it clearly was, then, why didn't Joe Biden do any of this? Why didn't Joe Biden even bother to go visit the people of North Carolina? I mean, it's just so insane on so many levels. But, ultimately, yeah, again, we have a real president back in America. Now, another thing, honestly, heartwarming and really powerful that Trump did today was he didn't just get up there and speak for himself or make it about himself. He actually gave an open mic to some of the local residents of North Carolina who were affected by this, so that way they could put their stories out of how, first of all, tragic the situation was, but in many cases how openly and blatantly they were betrayed by local leaders, insurance companies, federal leaders, etc. in this entire story. And watching a president actually give a voice to his own people tells you that things are really starting to change fundamentally in this country.
For the structural engineer even came out in order to get our flood payout, and to me that was not really acceptable.
Has the insurance company been responsive or not really?
Not so much. Again,
They give you the money they have to give you?
I'm hoping so, and we need some assistance with that. We reached out to an attorney.
What's the name of the insurance company?
North Carolina Farm Bureau.
We've got to move it, right?
Yep,
That's terrible.
that's what we're after here.
Are a lot
So
of people having that problem too? With the insurance companies, general, different insurance companies, and they're all difficult, or just the one particular one?
I've heard different stories from others.
It was hit really hard. I was home alone, and my husband had stayed in town because we take care of a little lady that's 98 years old, and she lives out in the woods by herself. And I said, just stay with her and make sure that she's okay. And I got up the next morning, and my first thought was, I want to go see what our road and bridge looks like. So as I was making it down to the road and the bridge, there was no road and bridge. And so, here we are, we're like at a little island, we can't access the main road or anything. And then the fire department came by the next day and said that they were evacuating me and my neighbor because a landslide was going to come. And they told me to get my stuff and get ready. And so while I was getting my stuff and getting ready, there was a knock at the door. So I thought it was the fireman. And I went to the door, and there stood my 21-year-old son. His name's Nathan. And he had drove as far as he could to get to me. But he hiked 5 miles. And it took him a really long time. And he got there and he said, Mom, grab a bag. We got to go. And you see your neighbors that are gone. And it's just, we need help. I wrote a letter to send to Congress. I don't understand what's going on. If we can't get FEMA help, then will you guys help us? Will you step up and be our fellow citizen? Will you step up and be our neighbor and send us something? Help us get our community back. I could go on. It's just it's just heartbreaking. I appreciate you.
Good daughter you have, huh? Good daughter. Take care of Mom. And your son must be great.
My son is great.
No, he sounds like a real leader this morning.
He really is. To hike
How
in.
would you have been if he didn't come and get you?
I don't know. I'd just would have been there because the only thing we could do, there was no way to get out there. The only thing we could do is just hike up to the church, the first church that was up there, about 3 miles, to get, maybe what we needed or something. I don't know. He is. Thank you.
It's funny because so many of Trump's haters and seethers and doubters constantly say that the guy is so ego-driven. He only cares about himself, all this. It's like, okay, you can say that. You can say this is for political gain, but ultimately, real people's lives were affected by this. And Joe Biden never visited these people, much less actually gave them a platform on national television to tell their stories. I mean, Trump even encouraged that one guy in the beginning to say, no, name the insurance company. Like, let's let the world know. And I can guarantee you right after that insurance company is suddenly getting their act together, right? This is what a leader is supposed to do. This is how things are supposed to be in America. It should not be, this is what is so infuriating about the situation. It should not be exceptional what Trump is doing. It shouldn't matter, right? Democrat, Republican, whatever parties in power, the basic function of a government is to protect its citizens, especially in times of crisis like this. And we live in the wealthiest nation on earth. America's, the top superpower of the world. And this is what is going on, right? 119 or so days, ever since Hurricane Helene struck North Carolina, and the progress has been virtually zero. It's insane. Okay. But, I'm glad help is finally on the way. you know, I guess the thank you to the people of this country for finally electing a real president. And what a disgrace, right? What a disgrace the last administration was. But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.